The throne room of Valora Prime was the most beautiful place Commander Daniel Carter had ever seen. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that seemed to hold actual stars within its glass. The floor was made of smooth white stone that reflected the soft purple light from floating orbs. Everything about this place spoke of ancient power and endless wealth. Daniel stood in the center of the room with his second-in-command, Lieutenant Emil Walsh, beside him. Behind them waited a small group of human diplomats and guards. They had traveled 3 months through space to reach this moment. The Galactic Council had suggested a political marriage between humanity and the Valorian Empire. It was supposed to strengthen the new alliance between their species. At the far end of the room, Queen Selitha sat upon a throne carved from a single massive gemstone. She was tall and elegant, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Her eyes were large and completely black like pools of ink. A crown of living flowers rested on her head, and her long fingers tapped slowly against the arm of her throne. Around her stood dozens of Valorian nobles. They all watched the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to disgust. Daniel had been warned that Valorians considered themselves superior to most other species. They lived for 800 years. They had built an empire when humans were still learning to make fire. To them, humanity was young, primitive, and barely worth notice. Daniel kept his face calm and pleasant. He had prepared for this moment his entire career. At 32 years old, he was young for such an important mission. But the council had chosen him because he was patient, thoughtful, and nearly impossible to anger. "You may approach," Queen Selitha said. Her voice was cold and musical at the same time. Daniel walked forward with measured steps. He stopped at the proper distance and bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I bring greetings from the United Earth Government and the human species. We are honored by this opportunity to strengthen the bonds between our peoples." The Queen studied him like someone examining an insect. "The Galactic Council believes a marriage between our houses would benefit the alliance. They have sent you as the proposed candidate." "Yes, Your Majesty. I understand the honor of such a proposal. I come with open hands and honest intentions." Whispers spread through the gathered nobles. Some of them laughed softly behind their hands. Daniel heard words like primitive and short-lived creature, spoken just loud enough for him to catch. Emma tensed beside him. Her hand moved slightly toward the weapon at her hip, but Daniel gave her a small shake of his head. They had expected this. They had prepared for worse. Queen Selitha raised one elegant hand, and the room fell silent. She leaned forward on her throne, and her black eyes seemed to look straight through Daniel's soul. "Commander Carter," she said slowly, "your species has existed for barely a moment in galactic time. You live for less than a century. You have no great empires, no ancient wisdom, no legacy that will outlast the next 1,000 years. My daughter is a princess of the Valorian Empire. She will live to see your great-grandchildren turn to dust." The Queen stood, and her presence filled the entire room. "I refuse this proposal. A marriage between my house and humanity would be like a mountain wedding a mayfly. It is beneath us. It is beneath my daughter." The answer is no. The words hung in the air like poison. Daniel felt the eyes of every Valorian in the room upon him. They were waiting for his reaction. Some of them looked eager, hoping he would lose his temper and prove that humans were the savages they believed them to be. Daniel took a slow breath. Then he smiled gently and bowed again. "Your Majesty speaks with wisdom," he said calmly. "I thank you for your honest answer. A forced marriage would benefit no one. I hope that even without this union, our species can still find friendship and cooperation." The room went completely silent. Even Queen Selitha seemed surprised. She had clearly expected anger, demands, or threats. She had not expected grace. "You accept this refusal?" she asked slowly. "I do," Daniel replied. Respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. Perhaps in time, humanity will prove itself worthy of Valorian regard. Until then, I ask only for peaceful relations between our peoples. He reached into his coat and produced a small wooden box. I brought this gift regardless of your answer. It is a seed from an earth oak tree. Oaks can live for 1,000 years. Plant it, and perhaps it will remind you that some things from earth have strength that is not immediately visible. A servant took the box from his hands and carried it to the queen. She opened it and looked at the small seed inside with an unreadable expression. Your ship may remain in our docking bay until your repairs are complete, she said finally. You have 3 days. Then you will leave Valora Prime. Thank you, Your Majesty. We are grateful for your hospitality. Daniel bowed one final time and turned to leave. His crew fell in behind him, and together they walked out of the throne room with their heads held high. Emma waited until they were in the corridor before speaking. That went about as well as getting punched in the face. Daniel laughed softly. Could have been worse. She could have had us executed. You handled it perfectly, Emma said. I wanted to break something, but you just smiled and thanked her. Anger would have proven her right about us. Dignity costs nothing, and it speaks louder than rage. They continued walking toward the docking bay, unaware that someone was watching them from the shadows of a pillar. Princess Alindra pressed herself against the cold stone and stared at the departing humans. She had expected the human commander to shout, to make demands, to act like all the other primitive species her mother had dismissed over the centuries. Instead, he had shown more grace than most Valorian nobles she knew. She watched him laugh with his lieutenant, watched the easy way he moved, the warmth in his voice. There was something different about these humans. Something her mother had not seen. Alindra made a decision. She would learn more about these strange visitors before they departed. She wanted to understand how a creature with such a short life could carry such quiet strength. She slipped away through a hidden passage, her mind full of questions that had no easy answers. The next morning, Princess Alindra found herself walking toward the royal docking bay. She told herself she was simply taking her usual walk through the palace grounds. But her feet carried her directly to the observation balcony that overlooked the human ship. The vessel was called the Horizon's Edge. It was small compared to Valorian warships, built from gray metal that showed signs of many repairs. It was not beautiful or elegant, but there was something honest about its design, something practical and strong. Alindra leaned against the railing and watched the humans work below. Their ship had suffered some damage during the long journey, and they were making repairs before leaving Valora Prime. She expected to see the commander giving orders while his crew did the hard work. That was how things worked in every civilization she had ever studied. But Daniel Carter was not giving orders. He was on his knees beside his crew, covered in grease and sweat, helping them fix a damaged panel on the ship's hull. He laughed at something one of the workers said and clapped the man on the shoulder like they were equals. Alindra felt confused. In Valorian society, nobles never performed manual labor. It was beneath their dignity. A commander working alongside common crew members was unthinkable. Yet here was this human, elbow deep in engine parts, smiling like he was having the best day of his life. Lieutenant Emma Walsh walked over to Daniel and handed him a tool. She said something that made the whole crew laugh. Daniel pretended to be offended, then threw a dirty rag at her head. She ducked and threw it back, and soon several crew members were involved in the playful battle. Alindra found herself smiling. Then she laughed out loud before she could stop herself. The sound echoed across the docking bay. Several humans looked up toward the balcony. Alindra pressed herself back against the wall, her heart racing. She waited for the shouts of alarm, the demands to know who was spying on them, but nothing happened. When she dared to peek over the railing again, the humans had returned to their work. Only Daniel was still looking in her direction. He met her eyes for just a moment, then looked away with a small smile. He had seen her. He knew she was there, but he said nothing, allowing her to watch without embarrassment. That small kindness struck Alindra more deeply than she expected. That evening, she went to the Royal Library. It was her favorite place in the palace, a vast room filled with knowledge from 1,000 worlds. She often came here to escape the endless politics of court life. Thought she was searching for books about human history. When she realized she was not alone, Daniel Carter sat at a reading table near the window, surrounded by old books about Valorian culture. He looked up when she approached and rose to his feet with a respectful bow. "Your Highness, I apologize if I am somewhere I should not be." The servant said the library was open to guests. "It is," Alindra said. "You may sit." She took a seat across from him, studying his face in the soft library light. He had brown eyes that seemed warm, despite everything her mother had said to him. His hair was dark and slightly messy from his day of working on the ship. There was a smudge of grease on his cheek that he had missed when washing up. "You are reading about my people," she observed. "I believe in understanding those I hope to befriend," Daniel replied. "Even if friendship is not wanted, knowledge has value. My mother was harsh with you yesterday. Most would be angry." Daniel shrugged. "Your mother is a queen protecting her daughter and her people. I cannot blame her for being cautious about strangers." Alindra tilted her head. "You are strange, Commander. Humans are supposed to be aggressive and emotional. You are neither. We can be both when the situation calls for it. But wisdom lies in knowing when strength is needed and when patience serves better." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Alindra found herself wanting to ask the question that had been burning in her mind since the throne room. "How do you bear it?" She finally asked. "Bear what, Your Highness?" "Your short lives. You will live less than 100 years. My mother is 400 years old and still in her prime. How do you not despair at having so little time?" Daniel leaned back in his chair and considered her question seriously. "When I was young, I asked my grandmother the same thing. She told me that a candle is not sad because it burns for only a few hours. It simply shines as brightly as it can while it lasts." He smiled softly. "Humans do not see our short lives as a curse. We see them as a reason to treasure every moment. We love deeply because we know time is precious. We work hard because we want to leave something behind. We form bonds quickly because we cannot afford to waste years on hesitation." Alindra felt something shift inside her. She had always pitied short-lived species. But hearing Daniel speak, she began to wonder if Valorians were missing something important. Her people lived so long that they had become slow and careful. They planned for centuries and formed attachments that took decades to develop. They had forgotten how to burn brightly. "You are not what I expected," she said quietly. "Neither are you, Your Highness. I expected a princess who shared her mother's views. Instead, I find someone with curious eyes and an open mind." Before Alindra could respond, a servant appeared at the library door. "Your Highness, the Queen requests your presence immediately." Alindra stood, suddenly nervous. "I must go, of course." Daniel rose and bowed. "Thank you for the conversation. It was the highlight of my visit." She walked quickly toward the door, but paused at the threshold. "Commander, the banquet tomorrow night. You should be careful. Not everyone at court is as patient as my mother." Then she was gone, leaving Daniel alone with his books and his thoughts. He sat back down slowly, wondering what dangers awaited at the banquet. But more than that, he found himself thinking about the princess with the curious eyes who had laughed at his crew's silly games and asked questions. That cut straight to the heart of what it meant to be human. Perhaps This mission was not a complete failure after all. The grand banquet hall of Valora Prime glittered with light from 10,000 floating crystals. Long tables stretched across the room, covered with food from dozens of worlds. Ambassadors from across the galaxy had gathered to celebrate the annual Festival of Stars. It was the most important social event in Valorian. Space Daniel and his crew had been invited as a formality. Their seats were at the very end of the lowest table, far from the Queen and the important guests. It was a deliberate insult, meant to remind everyone that humans were barely worth acknowledging. Emma Walsh looked at their seats and snorted. "At least we have a nice view of the kitchen doors." "Free food and entertainment," Daniel replied with a smile. "I have been to worse parties." They took their seats and tried to enjoy the evening. The food was strange, but delicious. The music was beautiful, even if the instruments looked like nothing from Earth. Daniel watched the other guests and studied their customs. Always learning, always observing, Princess Alindra sat near her mother at the high table. She wore a gown of deep blue that made her silver skin glow like moonlight. Several times during the evening, her eyes found Daniel across the crowded room. Each time, she looked away quickly, as if afraid someone would notice. Everything was going smoothly until the Draxian ambassador arrived. The Draxians were a warrior species from the far edge of the galaxy. They were massive creatures with scaled skin and 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. They respected only strength and saw kindness as weakness. The Draxian Empire had been expanding aggressively, and there were rumors of conflict with human colonies on the border. Ambassador Gorath entered the banquet hall like he owned it. He was even larger than most of his kind, with deep scars across his face that spoke of many battles. His dark eyes scanned the room until they landed on the humans at the far table. He smiled in a way that showed all of his sharp teeth. Daniel felt the danger immediately. He caught Emma's eye and gave her a small signal to stay calm. Gorath walked directly toward their table, ignoring the greetings of other ambassadors along the way. The room gradually fell quiet as everyone realized something was about to happen. "So these are the famous humans," Gorath said loudly. "The prey animals who somehow convinced the Galactic Council to give them a seat at the table." Daniel stood and offered a polite bow. "Ambassador Gorath, I have heard much about Draxian courage and strength. It is an honor to meet you." Gorath laughed, and it was an ugly sound. "Honor? You speak of honor while you sit at the children's table, begging for scraps from your betters." The other guests watched in silence. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed entertained by the confrontation. Queen Silitha observed without expression, making no move to intervene. "We are guests here," Daniel replied calmly. "We are grateful for any hospitality shown to us." "Hospitality." Gorath spat the word like it tasted bad. "In my empire, weak species serve the strong. Perhaps when we finish expanding our borders, humans will learn their proper place. On their knees, serving Draxian masters." Emma stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Now listen here, you overgrown lizard." Gorath moved faster than something his size should be able to move. His massive hand shot out and grabbed Emma by the arm, lifting her partially off the ground. She gasped in pain as his claws dug into her skin. "Such spirit," Gorath said with amusement. "Perhaps I will keep this one as a pet when we conquer your pathetic worlds." What happened next became a legend that spread across the galaxy. Daniel did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply moved. One moment, he was standing still. The next, he was behind Gorath with a dinner knife, pressed against the soft scales of the ambassador's throat. His other hand had found the nerve cluster at the base of the Draxian skull. Gorath's arm went limp, releasing Emma, who stumbled backward. The entire movement had taken less than 2 seconds. The room exploded in gasps and shouts. Draxian guards drew their weapons, but hesitated when they saw the knife at their ambassador's throat. Daniel's crew had risen from their seats, forming a protective circle around Emma. "Release me," Gorth growled. "Do you know what war with the Draxian Empire means?" Daniel's voice was soft and steady, but it carried clearly through the silent room. "You touch my officer. You threaten my people. Where I come from, that earns consequences." He leaned closer to Goroth's ear. "Humans may seem weak to you. We have no scales, no claws, no extra arms. But we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to survive by being faster, smarter, and more ruthless than anything that hunted us. Do not mistake our patience for weakness." He released Goroth and stepped back, setting the knife gently on the table. "I apologize for the disruption," he said to the room. "Please, continue enjoying the festival." Goroth turned slowly, rubbing his throat. His eyes burned with rage, but there was something else there now. Something that looked almost like respect. "This is not over, human," he growled. "It is for tonight," Daniel replied. "Unless you would like another lesson." The Draxian ambassador stalked away, his guards following close behind. The banquet hall slowly returned to normal, though the conversations were now filled with whispers about what everyone had just witnessed. Emma touched Daniel's arm. "Thank you." "Are you insane?" "Possibly," he admitted. "Are you hurt?" "Just my pride. And my arm. That thing has a grip like a starship clamp." Daniel smiled, but his eyes remained watchful for the rest of the evening. Across the room, Princess Alindra stared at the human commander with new understanding. She had seen Valorian warriors train her entire life. She had never seen anyone move like that. Beneath his gentle smile and patient words, Daniel Carter was a predator wearing the disguise of peaceful prey. Her mother had called humans primitive and weak. Her mother had been very, very wrong. Later that night, Alindra found Daniel standing alone on a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The stars above were bright, and the night air was cool and sweet. "That was impressive," she said softly, stepping up beside him. "That was necessary," he replied. "I do not enjoy violence, but I will not allow my people to be harmed. The Draxians will not forget this insult. They were already planning to attack our colonies. At least now they know we will fight back." Alindra studied his profile in the starlight. "You are full of surprises, Commander. The gentle diplomat who reads books in libraries. The deadly warrior who moves like lightning. Which one is the real you?" Daniel turned to look at her. "Both. All humans carry both inside us. We are soft and hard, kind and dangerous. It is how we survived a world that wanted us dead. It is why we spread across the stars, despite having no natural weapons." He smiled softly. "We are persistent predators, Your Highness. We do not win through strength or speed alone. We win because we never stop. We never give up. And we protect our own no matter the cost." Alindra felt her heart beating faster. She had lived for 200 years, and she had never met anyone like this human. "I think," she said slowly, "that my mother made a mistake about your species. Perhaps she will change her mind someday. Until then, I am grateful for your company." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead, while somewhere in the palace, Queen Selitha began to reconsider everything she thought she knew about humanity. The morning after the banquet, Princess Alindra requested an audience with her mother. She found Queen Selitha in her private garden, tending to flowers that were older than most civilizations. "You wish to speak with me, daughter?" The queen did not look up from her work. "I want to know the real reason you refused the human proposal." Selitha's hands stopped moving. She remained silent for a long moment before straightening and facing her daughter. "What reason do you imagine I have beyond what I stated? Humans are beneath us. Their lives are too short. Their civilization is too young. Those are excuses, not reasons. Alindra stepped closer. I have watched Commander Carter for 2 days now. He is intelligent, dignified, and honorable. Last night, he showed that humans are far more capable than we assumed. So I ask again, Mother, why did you really refuse? The Queen studied her daughter with those deep black eyes. Then she sighed, and for the first time in Alindra's memory, she looked old and tired. Walk with me. They moved through the garden together, past flowers that bloomed once every century and trees that had been saplings when the Empire was young. Finally, they stopped beside a quiet pool that reflected the purple sky above. Our people are dying, Silida said quietly. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily, generation by generation. Alindra felt a chill run through her. What do you mean? Our birth rates have been declining for 3,000 years. Each generation is smaller than the last. We live for 800 years, but we produce fewer and fewer children. The scientists say it is genetic. Our species has simply grown too old, too stable. We have lost the fire that drives younger races to grow and multiply. The Queen turned to face her daughter. In 1,000 years, there may be no Valorians left. Our great empire will fade into memory, and we will join the countless species that rose, declined, and disappeared into the darkness of history. Alindra felt tears forming in her eyes. Why have I never been told this? Because there is nothing to be done. We have tried everything. Genetic treatments, medical interventions. Nothing works. Our flame is simply burning out. But the marriage proposal, a union with humans might what? Salitha's voice hardened. Produce half-breed children who are neither Valorian nor human. Dilute our bloodline with creatures who live less than a century? I refuse the proposal because I will not watch my daughter's children die of old age while she is still young. I will not subject my heir to that kind of pain. Alindra understood now. Her mother was not acting from pride. She was acting from fear, from a desperate desire to protect her daughter from heartbreak. Mother, she said gently, have you considered that humans might be exactly what we need? What do you mean? They burn brightly, you said. They live fast and love fiercely. They do not wait centuries to form bonds or make decisions. Perhaps that fire is what our species has lost. Perhaps mixing with humans would not dilute our bloodline, but strengthen it. Silitha shook her head. You speak from emotion, not reason. I speak from observation. I have watched Commander Carter. He's patient but decisive, gentle but dangerous. He carries more life in his short decades than many Valorians show in their centuries. What if that intensity is the cure we have been searching for? The Queen's expression shifted. For a moment, Alindra saw doubt in her mother's eyes. Even if that were true, Silitha said finally, I will not force you into a political marriage with a stranger. Then do not force me. Let me choose for myself. You have known this human for 2 days. And in 2 days, he has shown me more honesty and warmth than most Valorian nobles show in decades. He accepted your rejection with grace. He defended his people without cruelty. He speaks to me like an equal, not like a prize to be won. Silitha closed her eyes. You are my only child, my heir. Everything I do is to protect you. I know, Mother, but protection can become a prison. Let me choose my own path. The Queen was silent for a long time. Then she opened her eyes. I will not approve this infatuation. The human ship leaves tomorrow morning. You will stay here. Alindra felt her heart sink, but she nodded respectfully. As you wish, Mother. That night, she went to Daniel's quarters on the horizon's edge. She had to bribe 2 guards and slip through a maintenance tunnel to get there. But she did not care about propriety anymore. Daniel opened his door and looked surprised to see her. "Your Highness, is something wrong?" "Everything is wrong." She stepped inside, and the door closed behind her. "My people are dying. My mother is afraid. And you leave tomorrow, probably forever." She told him everything her mother had revealed. The declining birth rates, the genetic dead end, the slow extinction that awaited her people. Daniel listened without interruption. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "I am sorry," he said finally. "That is a heavy burden to carry. What do your people do when they face extinction?" Daniel smiled sadly. "We have faced it many times. Wars, plagues, disasters. Each time, we survived by adapting, by changing, by reaching out to others for help. Humans are stubborn creatures. We do not accept defeat easily. And if someone offered you a chance to save your species, would you take it? Even if it meant changing everything you knew?" "Yes, without hesitation." Alindra stepped closer to him. "When my mother rejected you in the throne room, what did you truly feel?" Daniel considered the question carefully. "Relief, if I'm honest. I did not want a marriage built on politics and obligation. I believe that real partnerships must be chosen, not arranged. And if someone chose you, not because a council suggested it, but because she wanted to?" Their eyes met, and the air between them grew warm. "Then I would be honored," Daniel said softly. "But I would want her to be certain. Humans do not take such bonds lightly. We love completely, and we love forever, even if forever is much shorter for us than for others." Alindra reached out and took his hand. It was warm and rough from work, so different from the cold, smooth hands of Valorian men. "I am not asking for marriage tonight," she said, "but I am asking for a chance. Let me come with you when you leave. Let me see your worlds, meet your people, understand what humanity truly is. If what I feel is real, we will know. If it is just curiosity, then I will return home with no harm done." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "Your mother will never allow it. My mother cannot stop me. Valorian law grants adults the right to choose their own path. I am 200 years old. I am tired of being protected from life." She looked into his brown eyes and saw something she had never found among her own people. Genuine warmth. Real emotion. The intensity of a candle burning bright because it knows its time is limited. "Will you have me, Commander? Not as a princess or a political prize. Just as a woman who wants to understand." Daniel raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I will have you, Alindra. As a friend, a companion, and whatever else the future decides. I cannot promise you centuries, but I can promise you that every moment will be real." Outside the ship, the stars watched silently as two lives from opposite ends of the galaxy began to weave together. And in her palace chambers, Queen Silitha received a report from her spy network that her daughter had been seen entering the human vessel. She sat alone in the darkness for a long time, wondering if she had protected her child too much or not nearly enough. The summons came at dawn. Two royal guards appeared at the horizon's edge and requested that Commander Daniel Carter present himself to the throne room immediately. The request was polite, but there was no mistaking it for anything but a command. Daniel straightened his uniform and turned to Emma. "If I'm not back in 2 hours, leave without me." "Not a chance," Emma replied. "We came here together. We leave together. Or we stay together. Whatever happens." He smiled at her loyalty and walked out to meet his fate. The throne room was empty except for Queen Silitha and a handful of guards. The morning light filtered through the crystal pillars, casting rainbow patterns across the white stone floor. The queen sat on her throne, her face as cold as winter ice. "Commander Carter," she said as he approached, "you have put me in a difficult position. Your Majesty, if this is about last night, my daughter visited your ship. She stayed for 3 hours. My spy network is very efficient. Daniel bowed his head. I meant no disrespect. The princess came to me seeking answers. I gave her only honesty. The queen's voice was bitter. You told her you would take her away from her home, her family, her responsibilities as heir to this empire. I told her I would give her the choice to come if she wished. I did not convince her or manipulate her. Alindra is intelligent and strong-willed. She makes her own decisions. Silitha stood and descended from her throne, stopping directly in front of Daniel. She was taller than him by nearly a foot, and her presence filled the room with ancient power. My daughter believes that humanity might be the salvation of my people. She thinks your short-lived, intense species could restore the fire that Valorians have lost. She wants to become a cultural ambassador and travel to Earth to learn more about you and what you believe, Your Majesty. The Queen studied him with those endless black eyes. I believe you are dangerous, Commander Carter. Not because you are aggressive or cruel, but because you are genuine. You speak truth without calculation. You show kindness without expecting reward. You defended your officer without counting the cost. These are qualities that can capture hearts, and a captured heart is not easily freed. Daniel met her gaze steadily. I did not come here to capture anyone's heart. I came to offer friendship. If something more has grown between your daughter and me, it was not planned or manipulated. It simply happened, and if I forbid her from leaving with you, then she will stay, and I will go, and we will both always wonder what might have been. But I will not fight you for her. I will not turn your daughter against her own mother. Family matters to humans. It should not be torn apart by politics or emotion. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly her expression changed. The ice in her eyes melted slightly, revealing something that looked almost like respect. You would walk away from her? If that is what her family needs, yes, I would break my own heart to preserve hers. Before Silitha could respond, the throne room doors opened. Princess Alindra walked in with her head held high, wearing traveling clothes instead of royal gowns. Behind her came Lieutenant Emma Walsh and the rest of the human crew. I requested privacy, the Queen said coldly, and I request the right to speak for myself. Alindra crossed the room and stood beside Daniel, not touching him but clearly united with him. Mother, I love you. I respect you. But I will not live my life in fear of what might happen. You would abandon your duty as heir? I am not abandoning anything. I am asking to serve our people in a different way, as an ambassador to humanity, as a bridge between our civilizations. If their fire can truly help us, someone must go and find out. Let it be me. Silitha looked at her daughter with eyes that held centuries of love and worry. And if you fail? If their fire cannot save us? If you bind yourself to this human and watch him age and die while you remain young? Alindra glanced at Daniel, then back at her mother. Then I will have lived truly, even if briefly. I will have loved completely, even if painfully. Is that not better than surviving 800 years in a palace, watching our people fade into memory while doing nothing? The throne room fell silent. Everyone waited for the Queen's response. Silitha closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there were tears on her silver cheeks. You sound like your father, she whispered. He had the same fire in his words, the same stubborn courage. She reached out and touched her daughter's face gently. I cannot stop you. Valorian law grants you the right to choose your own path. And perhaps you are right. Perhaps I have been so focused on preserving what we have that I forgot how to fight for what we might become. She turned to Daniel with a fierce expression. If you hurt my daughter, if you break her heart or betray her trust, humanity will learn why Valorians once ruled 100 worlds. I will personally destroy everything you love. Is that understood? Daniel bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I expect nothing less. And I accept your terms. Seeletha nodded slowly. Then go. Take my daughter. Show her your worlds. Let her decide if humanity is truly the answer to our prayers. She pulled Alindra into a tight embrace. Come back to me, child. Whatever happens, come back. I will, Mother. I promise. An hour later, the horizon's edge lifted off from Valora Prime. Daniel stood on the bridge, watching the purple planet shrink in the view screen. Beside him, Alindra pressed her hand against the glass, saying a silent goodbye to everything she had ever known. Are you certain about this? Daniel asked quietly. No, she admitted. But certainty is for those who have centuries to wait for answers. You taught me that sometimes you must leap before you are ready and trust that you will learn to fly on the way down. Emma appeared behind them. Course is set for Earth. Estimated arrival time is 7 weeks. I had the crew prepare quarters for the princess. Ambassador, Alindra corrected with a small smile. If I'm going to do this, I will do it properly. Daniel grinned. You will fit right in with humans. We like people who commit fully to their choices. The ship turned toward distant stars, leaving Valorian space behind. Ahead lay Earth, humanity, and a future that neither species could have predicted. Alindra took Daniel's hand as they watched the universe unfold before them. What happens now, Commander? Now we show the galaxy what humans and Valorians can build together. Not through arranged marriages or political treaties. Through genuine connection. Through choosing each other every day because we want to, not because we have to. They squeezed her hand gently. We will probably make mistakes. There will be misunderstandings and cultural clashes and moments when we want to give up. But humans are persistent. We do not quit on the things that matter. Alindra leaned her head against his shoulder. Neither do Valorians. We simply forgot that truth for a while. The stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, on Valora Prime, Queen Seeletha stood alone in her garden. Holding the oak seed Daniel had given her, she planted it in the richest soil in the garden and whispered a prayer to God she had stopped believing in centuries ago. Let it grow, she thought. Let it grow strong and tall, and remind us all that some things are worth waiting for. And far across the galaxy, hurtling toward an uncertain but hopeful future, her daughter began to laugh at something Daniel said, filling the bridge with a sound that was part Valorian music and part human joy. It was the sound of two civilizations beginning to heal each other, the sound of fire being rekindled, the sound of hope.